Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods. Today is the last day of Black History Month, so I've got an update for you. I'm also going to share with you exactly why I coach, and I'll give you one of my most favorite hitting drills as of late. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, guys. So this is episode number 15, the very last one of season 2. We'll launch season 3, though, I promise, on March 14th here in a couple of weeks. But I just wanted to wrap up Black History Month with just a quick excerpt about Billie Harris. And if you don't know the name Billie Harris, she is the Jackie Robinson of softball. And so I found an excerpt right out of the Essence magazine. It was written by Veronica Wells and back in October of 2022, and I couldn't have summed it up better. Just the journey of Billie Harris, and so I hope that you'll enjoy listening this as I go through it. So again, this is about Billie Harris. She pretty much broke the color barrier when it comes to softball, and again, the spitting image I would say of Jackie Robinson of her time. So here we go. So it says, just a teenager when she discovered what she wanted to do with her life. Harris and her family had just moved to Tucson, Arizona from Texas when she stumbled across a local magazine called Arizona Highways. And in it, she saw a piece about two softball teams, the PVFW Ramblers and the A1 Queens. And she said, I said, oh my, I sure would like to do that. And from that moment on, it was just one of those things that I wanted to do, Harris said, age 89 at the time that this was written. So Harris is 90 years old today. And Harris goes on to continue. She says, Harris' discovery came in 1947, the same year Jackie Robinson would integrate Major League Baseball when he started at first base for the Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15th. A pioneer in the making herself, Harris started practicing the sport she knew she was destined to play. Quote, I used to throw the ball up against the wall, Harris explains. I actually did that for hours on end. Her dedication paid off. Eventually, someone saw Harris practicing alongside the road and asked her if she'd like to try out. Eagerly accepting the offer, she earned a spot on a team known as the Sunshine Girls. A left-handed pitcher, Harris spent decades playing softball, including 15 years on the Ramblers, the same team she saw in that magazine as a team. Her skill on the field led her to being known as the Jackie Robinson of softball. And in 370 games, Harris had 264 hits, scored 123 runs, and had 59 RBIs. She pitched 70 no-hitters, including 4 perfect games. Though she would enjoy career success, the journey was not an easy one. Harris was often the only black woman on her team, and in the 50s, when she first began playing, segregation was still the law of the land. Harris said, quote, I was not able to eat in the restaurants, and if I did eat, I had to eat back in the kitchen, she recalls. Despite the mistreatment, there were always people looking out for Harris. We had a black cook in the kitchen, so I got the best of food, she says, chuckling. Sometimes the hostility existed within her own team. When asked if her white teammates were welcoming her at the time, she says, some were, some weren't. And I always was the only black on the team, so it was just one of those things that I had to endure because I wanted to play. In addition to the difficult reality of racism, Harris also had to contend with the lack of financial security that comes with being a woman playing a sport. She worked a regular job throughout the early days on the team, and she'd often have to decide between softball and gainful employment. Quote, I had to quit my job every time I had a softball game out of town, says Harris, who worked in maintenance and eventually at a clothing store in Phoenix. I would go back each Monday morning to see if they had anything that I could do. Generally, for 4 years, they did. The only compensation Harris received at the beginning of her career was a $3 stipend for food. She wouldn't play softball on a professional level until she was 43 years old, and then only for a year. During her years of struggling to be taken seriously, she always had the support of her family. The only girl in the house with 4 boys, Harris was always known as a tomboy. Her parents, Noble and Arlillian Harris, took her passion for pitching very seriously. Quote, my mother loved it, my dad enjoyed it, my brothers would come see me play. I was very happy to have my family seeing me. And in total, Harris played softball for 6 decades, retiring at the age of 74. Quote, I would have continued except I had knee problems, she says. I just thought I'd better quit then. Still, she's gone on record to say she could still run and bend as well as anyone else on the team. Since her retirement, Harris is finally receiving some of the recognition she should have received from the start. In 1979, she was inducted into the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame, and in 1982, surrounded by the family who bolstered her, Harris became the first African American woman inducted into the Amateur Softball Association Hall of Fame. So again, that's a story about Billie Harris, the Jackie Robinson of softball, and I bet a lot of you, like myself, had never heard that name before. But I'm really glad I came across it, and I've dug into some more research on that, and hopefully I'll be able to shed a little bit more light on her story and the influence that she's had on so many young ladies for years and years to come, but also back during her generation when segregation was still a big deal. So shout out to Billie Harris, man, and all of the ladies and women and everybody like her who have had a huge impact on this sport. I know there's a lot of black women that have played this sport and played it at a high level. One of recent memory that I grew up watching was Natasha Watley, and obviously most recently as she's kind of entered the area of pro world, Odyssey Alexander too. So plenty to name. I'm not going to continue to name drop because I'll forget some amazing folks out there. But again, shout out to Billie Harris and everyone else like her, guys. So we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to jump back in. I'm going to give you guys some college softball updates of the past week. Here, we've got some shake up here in the top 10, a little bit, actually in the top 25 completely, and we'll go from there. So without further ado, we'll be right back, guys. Okay, guys, welcome back to the show. So, as promised, I'm jumping into this college softball update, man. I love this season. I love this time of year. I told y'all, man, I hope you are jumping in to college softball head first. And if you're not, you are missing out. We still got time. Okay, so let's talk about the top 10 real quick because we had a few things kind of get jumbled up a little bit. So, of course, Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, Washington remain at the top four after this past weekend. Texas dropped a thriller. Man, talk about a thrilling game. Texas, Stanford. If you didn't watch that one, again, you missed a treat. Extra innings. Kennedy, I told y'all from Jump Street, man. Kennedy should be in the. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say it. But Kennedy's a beast. Okay. And Kennedy from Stanford, she virtually mowed down Texas in extra innings. But I mean, what a game that was! Nip and tuck all the way. I think it ended up being 4-3 at the end of it, finishing the eighth inning though. But Texas dropped that game. Still, I think they're the number 2 team in the country as the rankings show. Georgia awkwardly dropped a game to Virginia Tech over the weekend. They did bounce back and win on Sunday as well. But again, they're still a top 3 team in the country. Washington took some hits, but they're top 4. Well, we got a brand new top 5 team. I gotta boast. I gotta just brag on my girls. My Bayou Bengals, LSU Tigers, led by the great Taylor Pleasance. Man, she's batting nearly 450 this year thus far with a handful of home runs. That pitching staff looks dang good. The defense is strong. And as Taylor Pleasance, man, mentioned back on the show at the beginning of this season, there's some speed in Baton Rouge, no doubt. So top 5 team, 13-0 right now, going into the Purple and Gold Challenge. So proud of my ladies, man. They got to keep it going, keep the hype up, keep it rocking. But I see Duke, Oklahoma State, Clemson, Tennessee, Stanford all round out the top 10. Tennessee was number 2, and I think for a little while there dropped to number 5, and then of course LSU replaced them as the top 5 team. But don't sleep on Tennessee, man. I think they're going to really do some damage once SEC play rolls around. So I'm not tripping about their droppage in the standings. Alabama right on the outside, sitting at number 11. I think they're 16-0 right now. So they're they're the I guess the worst ranked undefeated team. right now. That's in the that's in one of the Power Five conferences. So anyway, man, I'm pumped up about this season, guys. I hope you are too. Once conference play rolls around for all of these conferences, that's where you're going to see the rubber meet the road, I think, because everybody's going to be, getting down each other's throats a little bit. You're going to jump into these 3-game series, whether home and home, away and away, whatever, and it's gonna get real quick. So a lot of people are doing some non-conference action right now, which there's been some really good non-conference play, no doubt. And they've actually coming up this weekend, you got that Georgia Stanford matchup. I think they play twice. They play Saturday and Sunday out in Palo Alto, California, in a series there. So there's some good non-conference action going on, but I can't wait for conference play. I'm pumped up about that, guys. So there's our college softball update. Also, I want to talk about one other situation. I talked about a couple of situationals last week with our first and third coverage, and then with that with that batter getting walked, trying to go straight from home to second with a runner over on third base. But this week, I want to give one situational here that I want to be clear that everybody is understanding of, and it's just simple drop third strike scenario, whether you've got a base occupied or not. So how does that work, right? So just the basic rules of a drop third strike. I've heard some families, even parents, not completely understanding the rule itself. So remember, when you got a drop third strike, okay, and there's no base occupied, that batter has a straight path to first base, and he or she can get down the line, right? So a play has to be made right there on that front, okay? If the base is occupied with less than 2 outs, okay, with less than 2 outs, if the base is occupied, we got a no-go, all right? So catcher, hold that ball, right? Don't shoot that ball down the first base because the batter's automatically out anyway. And now those runners can now run at their own risk. Okay, and now you got to make a play elsewhere. All right, if they're gonna take off, obviously. So if it's occupied, less than 2 outs, no go. If it's 2 outs, it doesn't matter if it's occupied or not. Okay, so there has to be a play made at first base. If we get a drop third strike, that runner takes off. We got to make a play with 2 outs at first base at that point. So I felt like there was a little bit of mix up on that a little bit as people sent in some questions on the show, and I wanted to make sure that everybody's understanding of how that works, especially some of our younger viewers who may not experience the drop third strike all the time. You want to be able to know how to play that the right way. Obviously, drop third strike with the bases loaded, catchers just tag home plate, right? No need to make that additional throw 60 feet down the first base line if you don't have to. So I always talk to my players about making the shortest throw possible, keeping that long throw on an as needed basis type scenario. So again, that's the one situation I wanted to talk about this week. We're going to take one more break here, and I'm going to jump back in here and talk about the open book segment questions with you guys, and then we'll also go through a spring training update with my players that I went through with them over the weekend. So we'll be right back, guys. All right, guys, so we're going to jump right back in with our open book segment questions. I got 2 of them here for you today. And this first one is here from Darren L. And he asks a very simple question: why do you coach? Well, Darren, that is a very good question. I'm not going to get long-winded on that one, but I will say I got into coaching because I wanted to make a positive impact on people, specifically younger folks, right? I started coaching, 10 years ago now, I guess. I'm 28. Yeah, I started coaching at 18, which is weird to think about. But I know for me that I know a lot about the X's and O's of the game, and I know now that I have the influence and the connections to help young women and men be able to, gain college scholarships through this game. I know that I want to just simply show people what a good person looks like, just to be able to have that example in their life if they don't already have it. And ultimately, I know that there's avenues out there where I can help people into adulthood as well with their day-to-day lives or jobs or just being a mentor even. So I know that's one reason why I coach, just again being that positive influence. I know another reason though is that I believe that uh, personally, I believe that sports and music are two of the greatest unifiers of people on earth. When I think about sports, man, you got people from all walks of life, right? All races, all religions, all people groups, monetary backgrounds, any and everything that you can think about to quote unquote separate us. I feel like sports puts us all in one bucket. And you can have a group of guys or a group of girls on one ball club, and they can unify around this one sport, whether it be softball or any other sport. So again, I could go on and on about why exactly I coach, but I'd say those would be two reasons. I feel like the sport unifies people, or sports in general unifies people, and I just want to make a positive impact. So I hope that's a good enough answer for you there, Darren. And the next question is, what's one of your favorite hitting drills? And this one's by Griffin P. So my hitting drills change by the month, honestly, because it's really whatever I'm working on lately with young men and women that I give lessons to. And right now, because it's the beginning of baseball school season and the beginning of softball travel season, I'm really locked in on pitch recognition for my guys and girls, because sometimes when you take an extended break, it's hard to pick back up on the spin of the ball coming out of the pitcher's hands, and you just want to make sure that you're not getting fooled too much in the early season. So pitch recognition is a big deal for me. That's a drill that I work on a lot, and basically what I do is I stand from a short distance. I can do this very easily with baseball because I was a baseball pitcher, and so I'll sit up there at the mound, and I'll spin curveballs in there so that they can see the tumble on the curveball. Same thing with a changeup. Same thing with the four seam, two seam fastball, slider. Whatever that I can throw them, I want them to be able to see that rotation on the ball, so ultimately they can recognize what's coming, right, and how to respond to it. And then ultimately, after they've seen a few go by, right, then we start being able to time that up. We hit the pitch well that way. Same thing on the softball side. I don't spin the ball as well on the softball side, but again, getting that pitch recognition in there is incredibly important for all hitters. And if you're not doing something like that yet, I would encourage you to do so, whether it be in your lessons, if you have time to do it in your team practices or some group sessions. Make sure that you've got that pitch recognition down and recognizing those spins from pitchers, because I think the deeper we get into the seasons, and obviously the older that you get, you're going to see better pitchers and pitchers who can disguise things even better as well. I know last week we talked about the screwball, curveball. Obviously, curveball, screwball, and softball goes total opposite directions. So you want to be able to recognize and pick up on that so that you can respond to it accordingly at the plate. So that would be my latest favorite hitting drill. If you ask me again next month or even tomorrow, I might give you a different answer. But for now, that's what I got for you. So I want to give you guys a spring training weekend update. If you listened to last week's episode, I told you guys last weekend I was going to be taking my softball team through a 48-hour spring training weekend. It's the third year I've done it. And guys, I'll tell you, man, if you know any of my softball players that I coach directly on our Elite Diamonds Gold team, give them a pat on the back, give them a free Frosty from Wendy's, give them a massage coupon, anything that you can think of. I think they deserve it because they absolutely killed it, man. They went through that weekend, and I won't say flawlessly because it's not built to go through flawlessly, but what we put them through, the mental grind, but mainly the physical grind this year more than anything, they handled it well, and I'm sure they're still recovering as of today. But they did a heck of a job with it. We started the weekend off with a photo shoot, which was a lot of fun. But after that, it was a grind, and we went through all day Saturday. They had like a 4:15, 4 a.m. wake up call for practice early Saturday morning, and then they were at the ball field from basically 4:30 Saturday morning all the way till 5 something that evening. And of course, they're dog tired. They had to stay up and watch an inspirational softball movie, which I would encourage you to watch. It's called I Can, about the softball player who actually went on to be an All-American collegiate ball player who's not missing a full arm, but missing a portion of her arm at birth, and just went on to be a big time softball player. But anyway, they had to watch that movie Saturday night at like 8 p.m. Of course, they're tired. Sunday morning, they get up for yoga. We go on a kayaking adventure. Some of them had never been on the water before, let alone a kayak. So a lot of that was awesome. And then of course we went on to finish the day Sunday rather playing in a doubleheader against the college team. Got our butts whooped as expected, just because they were exhausted, but also it's a collegiate team. They're a good ball club, obviously as well. But just the girls, man, they handled it well, and I absolutely love that the girls responded the way they did. And when I say they handled it well, I'm not saying that they, just passed every test with flying colors, although they did. But I'm talking about I feel like I know that there were moments during that weekend where some of them just wanted to be like, Coach D, I need to tap out. But they didn't, right? Or there were moments where, they could have chosen to go to sleep when they had an opportunity, but they stayed awake and they used that time to bond with each other. I was having a conversation on Saturday with one of my players, K-Mac, who's going to Gordon State College as a utility pitcher. Just got to meet her really within the last 8 to 10 months or so, and I love her to death, man. Just a big fan of K-Max. But I talked to her on Saturday, and I'm like, she looked like a zombie for a second. I'm like, you all right? You good? She's like, yeah, I didn't sleep a bunch last night. And I'm like, I know I gave them the opportunity to sleep. I think maybe 5 or 6 hours or something like that. And what she told me though was that although she had an opportunity to go to bed, her and a couple of teammates, they just got into some really interesting conversations. And she's like, I can sleep next week. That was worth it. I'm not going to get that time back. And as a coach, man, that means a lot to me to hear, because it's like the girls and the players, they're bonding together. They're trying to develop that chemistry, and it's organic and it's off the field too. And that's, to me, I'm a firm believer in developing that chemistry outside the lines, so that once you get in between the lines, you're able to, be there for each other. And that's not why we develop the chemistry, right? Hopefully it's a lifelong thing, or, beyond the field, for a lot of these players. But anyway, that warmed my heart to hear that from K-Mac. And I don't even know where I was going with that. But anyway, so all that to be said, spring training weekend was an absolute blast. I love that the girls got an opportunity to go through it. And now we're ready to kick off our season, man. We start next week, actually. Next week is our first tournament, March 9th. Pretty much full blast from there. So pumped up about that. But anyway, so I'm going to wrap up the show here with a thought you should know moment. And I don't remember where I saw this quote, but it says, don't live the same year 75 times and call it a life. And when I think about that quote for a second, it really gives me cause to pause, because sometimes I know that as a coach, as a dad, as a husband, as a business owner, as a lot of different titles, I can fall into a routine, like a repetitious path. And some of it's good. Like I read, I run, I coach, I work, whatever, right? But sometimes it's good to disrupt that path, right? And sometimes it's good to make sure that this year doesn't look like last year. Now, I know we all go into next year and we're talking about, oh, it's going to be better, this and that. But I'm just saying, like, the way that you move and the way, the things that you're doing, right? The path that you're on. I think it's good just to make sure that you're continuing to not only elevate what you're doing, but be okay stepping outside that box and doing something different if what you're doing isn't working. So, I think we can all take that quote in a lot of different ways, right? But just don't live don't live Groundhog Day, basically, right? Don't do the same thing over and over and over again, and then you eventually die and not not have done anything any different in your entire life. So go see new things, go try new things, go eat new foods, meet new people, you know, do something new, do something different. So if I can't encourage you with that, with anything else other than that, I would encourage you to go do something new, or try something different this week or whenever you get an opportunity to see this show. So Anyway, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up today, and it has been an awesome season. I've got some amazing guests coming at you in season 3, starting March 14th. Thank y'all so much for tuning into the show. This, I'm every week I look at the numbers, and I don't stalk them, but once I check the numbers and I look at where the show is and where it started and where it's going, thousands upon thousands of people are tuning in the show every single week, guys, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that you feel like there's something I have to offer you with my words. But if I can do more than that for you in terms of just personal connections or mentoring or consulting or whatever, give me a shout. I'm always an open book. My players can attest to that. That I'm more than willing to help as much as I can with your game or with your life or anything I can do on that front. Or if I can point you into the right direction of other people, maybe it's not me that can help you, but maybe I know somebody who can. So anyway, with all that being said, I'm going to shine off the show and the season like I always do. And guys, please let everything that you do be done in love, because at the end of the day, that's truly what makes the world go round. Thank you all so much again for jumping in on season 2. And I'll catch you next season. Take care.